The story begins with a man named Mel, who, along with his wife, visits his older sister's house. Mel doesn't have any children of his own, but he loves his sister's daughter, his niece, deeply. Whenever he gets free time, he and his wife make it a point to visit her. Over time, Mel grows extremely close to both his sister and his niece, spending most of his days with them. He enjoys those moments, plays with his niece, and after putting her to sleep, he and his wife prepare to leave. Mel's sister, Belen, is a kind-hearted woman who always wants her brother to be happy. That evening, after leaving her house, Mel immediately notices that his wife seems upset with him. Curious, he keeps asking what's wrong, but she avoids answering, as if something serious is on her mind. Finally, she admits the truth: she wants a child of her own. Every time she sees Mel with his niece, she feels a stronger desire for them to have a son too. The confession surprises Mel. He also wants a child, but not yet. He believes they should first settle down in life before thinking about raising a baby. This difference sparks a heated argument between them. His wife, however, insists that having a baby would complete their family. Distracted and emotional, she accidentally swerves their car into another lane. A collision nearly occurs, but they manage to avoid it. Their car spins uncontrollably before coming to a stop. Relieved that nothing major happened, they barely catch their breath when suddenly, a huge truck crashes directly into their vehicle. The car is destroyed, and it's unclear who, if anyone, has survived. A year passes. It's revealed that Mel's wife didn't make it. Heartbroken and shattered, Mel now lives alone with just a cat for company. He struggles to cope with the loss, spends most of his time at home, and barely steps outside. One day, he sits in front of the television and sees breaking news about a dangerous virus rapidly spreading across the city. Authorities warn that the virus is airborne and extremely contagious. Infected individuals become highly aggressive and undergo strange bodily changes. The government urges everyone to stay indoors and avoid physical contact as much as possible. Scientists are still studying the virus, but they've identified its first variant. Though not immediately lethal, it alters human behavior drastically. Despite the warnings, Mel doesn't seem concerned. Since his wife's death, life has already lost its meaning for him. He often drives aimlessly to unfamiliar places, something he and his wife once did passionately together. But now, the passion is gone. On one trip, Mel visits a riverside where years ago his wife had bought a small boat. The boat still sits there unused. Deciding it's time to let go, Mel arranges to sell it. He brings a buyer, explains the boat's details, and begins the paperwork. Afterward, he heads to a supermarket, only to find crowds panic buying supplies in bulk. Families are stockpiling food and essentials, fearing the government might soon enforce a complete lockdown, preventing anyone from stepping outside. Mel, however, doesn't care much. He buys only a few things and heads back home. That night, he makes a video call to his sister Belen. His niece appears on the screen, and for the first time in a long while, Mel feels a spark of happiness seeing her smile. At this time, Belen was telling her brother Mel that her husband, being a soldier, was being transferred to a separate island for safety. That island was completely secure from the virus contamination zones. A bunker was being built there as well, stocked with natural resources, so they wouldn't have to worry about survival. Belen insisted that Mel come with them, but Mel refused at first, saying he wanted to stay where he was. Belen, however, knew her brother was completely alone after his wife's death. She kept urging him that, as a family, they should stay together during such a critical time. After repeated insistence, Mel finally agreed. Belen gave him all the details. He could easily reach the safe island by going through the nearest airport. She even arranged his ticket information. All Mel had to do was wait until the next day and board the plane. What none of them realized was how dangerous things were about to become. The next morning, Mel left for the airport, listening to the news on the radio as he drove. That's when he learned about the discovery of the virus's second variant. Unlike the first version, which only caused aggression, this new strain was far more violent. Infected people were now biting others, spreading the infection through blood and wounds, causing the disease to multiply uncontrollably. The government had no solution yet, and panic was rising everywhere. Growing anxious, Mel pushed forward, determined to get on that plane. When he reached the airport, he stood in line with countless others who were also desperate to leave. But chaos soon broke out as all the flights were suddenly cancelled. Authorities announced that the entire airport was being shut down. Because of the new, more dangerous variant, no country wanted to risk allowing outsiders in and spreading the virus further. The airport descended into chaos, panic, shouting, and confusion everywhere. Mel's phone rang. It was Belen. She told him he should return home immediately since the government had sealed off the airport and cancelled every flight. "The safest place for you right now is your own home," she urged. Mel reluctantly agreed and started heading back. The streets, however, were clogged with endless traffic. Cars were backed up for miles, not even leaving space for bicycles to pass. After waiting for hours without any movement, Mel finally grabbed his cat and continued the journey on foot. From morning to evening, he walked until he finally reached his apartment. But when he arrived, the scene was frightening. Police officers and heavily armed soldiers were surrounding the area. A large transport pipe was set up to take infected people away. Mel quickly discovered that his neighbor had contracted the second variant. The man was behaving like a wild predator, aggressive, violent, trying to bite and attack anyone in sight. Soldiers subdued him with their weapons and dragged him away. Shaken and tense, Mel rushed inside his apartment. Every news channel was still covering the virus outbreak, now spreading across half the world. The government was issuing strict orders for people to stay indoors. Just then, Mel received another call from Belen. This time, her voice was calmer. She told him that she, her husband, and her child had successfully reached the safe island. Meanwhile, the government had begun setting up different kinds of safe zones for the remaining survivors. In these safe zones, massive underground bunkers were being built to gather people together. But Mel strongly believed that such places were actually the most dangerous. If even one infected person managed to slip in, the virus would spread rapidly among everyone trapped inside, with no way out. That's why Belen warned her brother not to trust the bunkers. Instead, she instructed him to stay home, lock every window and door, and stock up on as many supplies as possible to survive for as long as he could. After carefully listening to all her advice, Mel went to a supermarket. What he found there shocked him. People were looting supplies like madmen. No one was paying, shelves were being emptied, and chaos ruled the place. Almost everything was already gone. Mel tried to gather whatever scraps were left, but people were so desperate they even snatched items right out of his hands. Somehow, he managed to grab a few cans of food, stuffed them into his bag, and began heading back home. But something happened that Mel wasn't prepared for. As he walked, he spotted a group of police officers ahead. Suddenly, an infected man lunged at one of them and bit him viciously. Mel froze in fear, but quickly grabbed a stick for protection. Instead of running away, he stepped forward to help the officer. The infected man then turned his fury on Mel, attacking him with wild, animal-like aggression. Mel fought him off with the stick, but it was clear he couldn't hold him off for long. Luckily, the officer was still alive and managed to pull out his gun. With one shot, he brought the infected man down, killing him instantly. Shaken, Mel rushed to help the wounded officer, only to see the man pointing his gun back at him. Mel quickly realized why. The officer had been bitten, and he knew he would soon turn into one of those creatures himself. He begged Mel to leave immediately. With no choice, Mel ran. Moments later, he heard a single gunshot. The officer had taken his own life before the infection could consume him. Back in his apartment, Mel locked every door and window twice over. He reinforced his home as best he could, determined not to let anyone or anything inside without his permission. Meanwhile, buses arrived in the city to transport civilians to the government safe zones. Soldiers were rounding up residents, loading them in, and driving them to the bunkers. But Mel remembered his sister's warning, that those zones might be more dangerous than staying alone. He chose to remain hidden, turning off all the lights in his apartment so soldiers wouldn't notice he was still there. And so began Mel's terrifying survival journey, one that could end with him starving, being infected, or dying alone. Days passed this way. The town was now completely deserted. Everyone had been taken to the safe zones. Only Mel remained. To let Belen know he was alive, he recorded videos and tried sending them to her, but with the internet shut down and no cellular network working, nothing went through. Slowly, his food supply ran out. Mel realized that if he didn't die from infection, hunger would finish him off. Desperate, he decided to search the nearby houses for food. He combed through one home after another, finding nothing. Finally, when he entered one house, he froze. Sitting across the room was an elderly woman in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk, which was why she hadn't been taken to the safe zone. She had been surviving alone in that house ever since. Mel thought the old woman might have some food, but she had already refused. The good thing, however, was that she had done a little research beforehand. She guided Mel, telling him which houses might still have supplies. Since the old woman couldn't go herself, Mel used her information and set out to search. After hours of looking, he was lucky to find several cans of food. He carried all of it back to her house, showing that he was a good man, sharing the food with her instead of keeping it for himself. After so long, they both finally had a decent meal together. Still, they knew this supply wouldn't last forever. One day it would run out, and they would need to look for more resources. The old woman advised Mel that he should have gone to the safe zone with the others. "Why did you stay here like this?" she asked. Mel had no real answer. Instead, he kept searching for food. Luckily, he discovered a house filled with useful supplies. He brought them back, and together they created a system to ration everything properly. Over time, Mel grew comfortable with the woman. In fact, while eating, he even spoke about his late wife. Surprisingly, he admitted he was almost relieved she had passed away, otherwise, she would have been forced to witness this horrific world. The old woman agreed, saying, "Whatever happens, happens for the best." After eating their fill, they both went to sleep. Mel often tried to contact his sister or send her videos, but there was still no network. He worried about whether she was safe but chose not to stress too much. One night, a radio signal suddenly came through, carrying the voices of soldiers. The old woman urged Mel to listen. The soldiers were sending out a message to anyone still alive in the town. They could come to the safe zone with no restrictions, where resources and protection would be provided. But the old woman warned him, where there were more people, the chances of the infection spreading would also be higher. She believed it was safer to stay away. Mel disagreed. He knew their supplies would eventually run out, and if they stayed, death was certain. Even though the woman could barely move, he was determined to take her with him to the safe zone. He packed everything and got ready the next morning. But when he went to her room, he froze in shock. The old woman had died. She had swallowed a large number of pills, intentionally choosing death over the risk of becoming a zombie. She even left a letter for Mel, thanking him for taking care of her during these days. Mel was heartbroken, but he knew he had to continue his journey alone. He recorded several messages for his sister, warning her that the roads were blocked and that she would need to head toward the government's bunker safe zone. As he gathered supplies, a female zombie attacked him. Fighting her off, he shot her, realizing that the noise would always attract more of them. He quickly grabbed his cat, packed his resources, and mounted a motorcycle. Speeding through the streets, he knew he had to reach the safe zone at any cost. Zombies chased him, but the motorcycle's speed kept him ahead. Eventually, he reached a blocked road and was forced to go off-road into the forest. When Mel arrived near one of the supposed safe zones, he was horrified to see a massive number of zombies waiting there. They swarmed toward him, forcing him to fight while trying to escape. In the chaos, his motorcycle lost balance and crashed, throwing him to the ground. His cat, locked in its cage, was still safe, but the bike was too damaged to restart. With hordes of zombies closing in, Mel had no choice. Grabbing the cat's cage, he ran as fast as he could, searching desperately for a place where the infected couldn't reach him. But in such a vast forest, he had no idea where safety could possibly be. Mel ran as fast as he could until he reached the riverbank, where he rushed into a small seaside house. The zombies were still chasing him, but he managed to outsmart them and escape through another route. Nearby, he saw several boats. He quickly climbed into a motorboat, but it didn't seem safe. Bloodstains were splattered everywhere. As Mel looked around, he suddenly heard a faint sound. Curious, he followed it and discovered a small child inside the boat. The child had already been infected and turned into a zombie. Mel froze, unsure of what to do. It was just a child, even though it was a zombie now. Mel was kind-hearted, and he couldn't bring himself to harm the kid. Instead of using the motorboat, he took a smaller boat and rowed away. As he traveled further, Mel recorded a message for his sister, explaining how even the government's so-called safe zones had been overrun. So many people had been infected that no one could keep count anymore. If he had stayed inside the safe zone, he might have turned into one of them too. As he carefully moved forward, he could see countless dead bodies floating in the water, a sight so horrifying he could have never imagined it before. Hours later, while continuing his journey, Mel spotted a ship in the distance. He waved desperately, trying to get their attention. At first, the people on board pointed guns at him, afraid he might be infected. But Mel explained everything. He wasn't infected, he was just trying to survive. After hearing his story, they finally pulled him aboard. The survivors took him to their main base, a larger ship where more people were living together. Among them was a man named Ben, a pilot, who treated Mel kindly and even gave him his own room. When Mel asked if there were other survivors besides them, Ben admitted, "No, you're the only one we found." The reality sank in. If he wanted to live, he'd have to stay with these strangers. That night, as Mel tried to sleep, he noticed a family approaching the ship, begging for help. Mel assumed, of course, that the crew would rescue them. But the next day, when he asked Ben about the family, he was told no such family had ever come. "You must be mistaken," Ben insisted. "Things like that don't happen here." Mel was unsettled. The entire situation felt wrong. Suspicion grew stronger, especially after Ben warned him to focus on his work and stop asking questions, or else his life might be in danger too. Mel realized he couldn't trust them and decided to secretly investigate. When he ventured into the lower deck of the ship, he was shocked to find the same family locked up and treated like prisoners. Wasting no time, Mel freed them. One man begged desperately for his missing wife and daughter, but Mel didn't know where they were. All he could do was help whoever he found. Their noise, however, drew the attention of armed crew members, who stormed in ready to shoot Mel. Just as they were about to fire, Ben appeared and killed one of his own men to protect Mel. Furious, Ben scolded him for interfering, but now the secret was out. With no choice left, Mel, Ben, and the rescued families tried to escape. The ship's captain and his loyal crew opened fire as they fled. One bullet struck a man from the rescued family, while another hit Ben in the shoulder. Somehow, Mel managed to speed the boat away, leaving the ship far behind. Wounded and weak, Ben collapsed. Mel steered toward the shore, determined to save him. He planned to take Ben to a nearby hospital for treatment and then climb to the top floor to contact a rescue team. Along the way, Mel asked Ben the question that haunted him: what happened to the missing women and girls from that family? Ben finally revealed the sickening truth: the ship's captain was a vile, corrupt man. He used to gather people like this and do unspeakably horrible things to them. Hearing about it made Mel furious, but for now, he had to focus on survival. Punishment could come later. As soon as he drove near the hospital, a swarm of zombies attacked them. Somehow, Mel managed to kick them away and rushed Ben inside. Inside the hospital, there wasn't a single staff member left, only darkness everywhere. A patient and even a doctor had already turned into zombies. Mel dragged Ben into a chamber and laid him on a stretcher. Ben told him he had to remove the bullet from his shoulder if he wanted him to survive. Mel had never done anything like this in his life and felt dizzy just thinking about it, but he had no choice. He started gathering the equipment for surgery. When Mel went into another room to grab some medicine, a zombie attacked him. Somehow, he shot it dead, but the gunfire attracted even more zombies. He ran for his life, but just as things looked hopeless, a nurse appeared and saved him. She quickly lifted the injured Ben onto another stretcher and carried him to another chamber. Soon, Mel discovered that the nurse wasn't alone. She was with another woman and some children, all hiding in the hospital for a long time with doors and windows barricaded. The nurse eventually helped Ben by removing the bullet from his shoulder. A while later, she told Mel that Ben was stable and then asked, "What's the plan now?" Mel, panicking, asked her if there was a helicopter or a plane they could use to escape. She showed him a helicopter parked below, but it was surrounded by dozens of zombies. Going there was suicide. Mel then opened up about how his wife had once been brought to this very hospital after a car accident, and how she had died here. Memories of carrying his injured wife through those same halls rushed back. He whispered apologies to her, regretting that he hadn't agreed to start a family when she wanted to. He had wanted to settle down first, but now life had left him completely alone. Overwhelmed with grief, Mel climbed up to a hospital tower and broke down in tears. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. There was network signal. Messages started pouring in, and among them were videos from his sister. She said they were safe on an island untouched by the virus, with plenty of resources. Mel felt a flicker of hope and replied immediately. But before he could think further, gunfire erupted below. A ruthless gang had arrived, killing survivors and looting their supplies. Mel rushed back to the others and warned them, "We have to reach that helicopter in secret. If the gang gets it first, our only chance to escape is gone." Everyone began preparing to move. As they slipped out, a zombie suddenly attacked one of the nurses. Mel managed to kill it, but she was fatally wounded. She urged them to leave her behind, saying she would hold off the zombies. Mel, the other nurse, and the children pushed ahead. They reached an open ground filled with zombies and carefully set up makeshift barricades to stay hidden as they moved silently forward. But disaster struck again. A wheel from their cart got stuck, making a noise that drew the zombies toward them. The numbers kept growing, and survival seemed impossible. They were almost at the helicopter when the nurse broke one barricade and rushed the kids inside. Mel stayed behind, fighting off zombies. Just then, the gang members showed up, aiming their guns at him. But Mel quickly tore open another barricade, letting the zombies flood in and attack the gang. In the chaos, Ben started up the helicopter. The nurse threw down a ladder, and Mel grabbed it just in time. They lifted off into the sky, heading for the island where Mel's sister was. Excited, Mel called his sister. But her voice shattered his hopes. "Don't come here. The virus has spread here too. It's dangerous, there's no point." Mel felt his world collapse, but deep down, he knew he had to save his sister, no matter what. Despite the danger, he decided they would still fly to the island. Military jets escorted them through the skies, and their fate was sealed. And with that, our story comes to an end.